Persian Gulf, 52 kilometers south of Bandar Abbas, 4:10 in the morning. 168 U.S. Army Rangers from the 75th Ranger Regiment were spread along the damaged LNG export terminal on Lavan Island, checking fires and marking hazards for follow-on strikes. Across the seawall, 512 Iranian forces defended 8 coastal anti-ship missile launchers and 6 fast attack craft tied to a reinforced pier. If the terminal stayed offline, 14 LNG carriers would stop moving and the Gulf would choke. The LNG hub mattered because it was a pressure point. A single hit on the loading arms had already stopped flow. Iran's leaders believed the next step was simple: keep the island armed, keep the water scared, force every ship to wait, then force the world to bargain. The defenses looked solid on paper. Iranian forces had 14 Zu-23-2 guns around the shoreline. They had 22 DSHK heavy machine guns on rooftops. They had 64 PKM machine gun positions inside the yard. They also had 48 strike drones, staged in 6 concrete sheds. The enemy believed no foreign warship would close the distance fast enough to matter. The U.S. response did not start with a speech. It started with a clock. A joint force would build a no-sail zone in 12 hours. U.S. Army forces on the island would hold the terminal. Alpha Element was 64 U.S. Army Rangers tasked with sealing the inner yard and stopping Iranian forces from reaching the pumps. Bravo Element was 48 U.S. Army Rangers tasked with clearing the shoreline gun pits already firing. Charlie Element was 32 U.S. Army Rangers tasked with securing the control building and backup generators. Delta Element was 24 U.S. Army Rangers tasked with guiding air and naval fires onto missile launchers without stopping the LNG fire crews. At 4:22, the second Iranian strike wave began. It came from 3 directions at once. From the west, 6 fast attack craft pushed off the pier. From the north, 24 drones lifted in pairs. From the east, rocket teams with RPG-7s moved into the rubble line. Iranian forces expected panic. They expected the U.S. to pull back from the water. Alpha Element stayed low and moved. U.S. Army Rangers with M4A1SO PMOD-2 rifles covered the yard gates. 2 Rangers carried an M240B and locked it onto a sandberg. When Iranian forces rushed the pump road, the M240B cut the line. The first push broke in 40 seconds. Bravo Element hit the shoreline pits without stopping. U.S. Army Rangers with Mk-18 CQBR rifles sprinted between concrete blocks. A Zu-23-2 opened up from a ramp. The gun walked fire across the beach. Bravo did not trade shots from the open. 2 Rangers aimed an AT-4 at the gun shield. The rocket hit. The Zu-23-2 stopped and smoked. At 4:26, the water fight turned sharp. A U.S. Navy destroyer and a U.S. Navy cruiser crossed into range. The destroyer carried SM-6 and SM-2 missiles. The cruiser tracked every drone as a dot. Iranian forces saw the radar sweep and tried to hide behind shoreline clutter. It did not work. The no-sail zone message went out on 7 emergency channels. It gave one clear rule: any armed craft inside 40 kilometers would be engaged. Iranian forces reacted with speed, not control. The fast attack craft split into 2 groups of 3. Each boat carried 2 RPG-7 teams and 1 PKM. They raced toward the channel markers. Their goal was simple: put bodies on the water, make the sea look unsafe. By 4:31, Charlie Element was in the control building. The front doors were chained. A Ranger cut the chain with bolt cutters. The door swung inward. 2 Iranian forces fired AK-74s down the hall. Charlie dropped to a knee and fired short bursts. The hallway cleared. A second door was locked. A Ranger placed a small C4 charge on the latch and popped it. The lock failed. Charlie reached the generator room and kept it running. At 4:34, weapon systems decided the next 3 minutes. The U.S. Navy cruiser fired 2 RIM-116RAM missiles at incoming drones that broke from cover. Both drones vanished in midair. The destroyer's Phalanx CIWS spun up and ripped apart 6 more drones that crossed too low. Pieces hit the water in a wide fan. No, Iranian forces launched 8 more drones anyway. The goal was to flood the sky. Delta Element did its job in short steps. U.S. Army Rangers marked targets with lasers and radios. 2 Hellfire missiles from a U.S. helicopter hit a drone shed. The roof lifted and fell. Fire pushed out of 3 vents. A second helicopter fired 4 more AGM-114 Hellfires at a truck row. The trucks burned in place. Iranian forces lost 12 drones before they could launch. At 4:39, Iranian forces tried to shift to rockets. 4 teams moved up with RPG-7s. They aimed at the Rangers on the seawall. Alpha Element did not wait. A Ranger with a MK-48 Mod 0 fired a long burst. The rockets dropped in the dirt. The teams rolled back behind broken pipes. 2 tried again. They did not finish the raise. At 4:44, the first U.S. Navy strike hit the missile line. BGM-109. Tomahawk came in low and fast. It hit a coastal launcher shelter and collapsed it. A second Tomahawk hit a command trailer and broke it apart. Iranian forces lost 2 launchers in 12 seconds. The remaining crews moved their launchers toward decoy nets. U.S. sensors followed the heat and motion. 15 minutes into the operation, the sea lane became the main fight. 3 Iranian fast attack craft crossed the 40-kilometer line at full speed. They fired PKMs at random. They were trying to look bigger than they were. A U.S. Navy aircraft dropped 1 GBU-31 JDAM on the lead boat's wake path. The blast flipped the boat and snapped it in half. The other 2 boats turned hard and tried to run. At 4:55, Bravo Element took more shoreline ground. The last ZU-23-2 on the south point fired again. It tracked the helicopters. Bravo moved under a low wall. A Ranger aimed a Javelin missile from behind cover. The missile arced and struck the gun mount. The gun stopped. The helicopter line stayed in the air. Iranian forces still had numbers. They used them. 2 platoons, 84 Iranian forces total, pushed toward the tank farm. They fired AK-74s and threw 18 grenades. Alpha Element held the berm. The M240B kept firing in short bursts. Rangers with M249 SAWs filled gaps when the M240B changed barrels. The Iranian push slowed, then split, then fell back. 1 hour after the assault began, the no-sail zone became real. A U.S. Navy destroyer fired 2 AGM-84 Harpoon missiles at a pair of Iranian boats that tried to hide near a buoy line. Both boats exploded. The shock wave rolled across the water and hit the pier. Iranian forces on the pier dropped flat. Some did not get back up. At 5:28, Charlie Element reached the data room. 2 Iranian forces tried to burn hard drives with fuel. A Ranger kicked the can away. Another Ranger used thermite on the burner tray to stop the fire from spreading. Charlie seized 18 storage devices and 6 paper binders from a steel cabinet. Delta Element moved the items into a sealed case and pushed it to the Rangers guarding the inner yard. By the 2-hour mark, Iranian forces were losing control of their own timing. They had 4 missile launchers left, but they could not risk lighting them up. Every radar blink drew attention. Every engine start gave away position. U.S. Navy aircraft circled at altitude with AIM-120 AMRAAM air cover, ready for any fighter that tried to lift. No Iranian aircraft showed. At 6:12, the last organized resistance broke at the east gate. 32 Iranian forces tried to rush the gate with trucks. An M2 Browning on a tripod cut into the lead truck. It stopped sideways and blocked the lane. Rangers hit the rear truck with an AT-4. The blast ended the push. The survivors dropped weapons and ran into smoke. At 6:38, the objective was secure. The LNG control building was held. The backup power stayed on. The drone sheds were burning. 6 of the 8 coastal missile launchers were destroyed. The remaining 2 were abandoned with cracked guidance boxes and empty rails. U.S. Army Rangers swept the last rooms and found 14 crates of spare drone parts, 96 detonators, and 28 sealed fuel drums, staged for more strikes. At 7:05, extraction began without drama. The U.S. Navy kept the no-sail zone active. 2 Iranian reinforcement columns, 146 vehicles total, all reached the far shoreline and stopped. They had no safe way to cross. Any boat that moved was tracked. Any radar that lit was hit. Iranian forces fired 12 long-range rockets anyway. None reached the terminal. final accounting was clear. U.S. Army casualties were 3 killed and 11 wounded. Iranian forces' losses were 96 killed, 104 wounded, and 32 captured, for 232 total losses out of 512. Equipment destroyed included 6 fast attack craft valued at $6,800,000 each, 6 coastal missile launchers valued at $14,500,000 each, 4 drone sheds valued at $3,200,000 each, and 1 damaged loading arm assembly valued at $62 million. Total confirmed Iranian military and infrastructure loss was $192,800,000. Iran believed the LNG hub could be shielded by distance, missiles, and fear. What happened instead was a no-sail zone built in 12 hours and enforced in minutes. Sometimes the strongest defense is not enough when U.S. Army Rangers and the U.S. Navy decide it needs to be taken.